the honor to welcome all of us, and specifically to welcome our colleagues from the Data Protection Office. I can see that our presenter, Kalema Christopher, is here. I can see Miss Anita Ahebwa, she's also here. I can see other colleagues from the different media houses. Thank you, comrades, for joining. I can see my colleagues from Consent, Henry Asher and Ronette, and I think other comrades. I can see all of us are here now. So you're very, very welcome, and allow me now to take the honors to just remind us of what we are going to discuss today, and then I can leave now the presenter probably to start from there. So allow me share my screen. Okay. There we go. All right. Henry, I need you to notify me that you can be able to hear me very well, but also you're able to see my screen. You can just notify me with a thumbs up. Okay, perfect. So, ladies and gentlemen, today, the Friday of 24th of July, 2026, we are honored to come again and catch up and discuss issues around personal data. Just like we had started this series, we have had three series sessions of the webinar on data protection being facilitated by our colleagues from the Personal Data Protection Office. And for the last two sessions, the different facilitators came on board to take us through a number of aspects. And we're also glad that today we have another interesting gentleman who is going to take us through today's session. We really want to appreciate Personal Data Protection for the financial support, but also for giving us the facilitators to run us through. Now, I just wanted to remind us a little bit, to remind ourselves of where we're coming from. You remember that on the 24th of April, I don't know whether it's always by coincidence that 24th seems to be our day for personal data. On the 24th of April, 2026, we rolled a sessions of the webinar on data protection. And that is the first media lead we had on data protection. You remember very well that in that session, we unpacked the Data Protection and Private Act. We said even before we dive into this whole thing, we needed to understand, do we have the law in place, and what does the law actually say? Such that when other presenters come on board, at least we understand the Data Protection and Privacy Act. And we want to thank very, very sincerely Mr. Davis Othieno, who is the Manager of Compliance and Investigation at the Personal Data Protection Office, who elaboratively took us through this and packed for us the legal issues and other aspects of the Act. And of course, we are trying to really empower you, the media personnel, to be able to inform the public, be able to protect yourselves and protect others, but also have a lot of influence in terms of advocacy for data protection. So on that Friday, I don't know why again today is another Friday. The other Friday was 24th and today is 24th. I don't know, but I think it's always by coincidence, or it is by the programmers that we have these sessions around the same time. So we really dived into that and were able to give you the materials. And from those materials, we've already seen some articles come through. Thank you, colleagues, for those who are able to document the articles. I have seen the news run here and there. In this particular meeting, we gathered 111 of us. 68 of us were male, and then 43 were female. So again, thank you so much for always honoring to come and learn and relearn. We moved on, and we looked at another exciting topic. We still want to appreciate the Data Protection Office for giving us a very wonderful lady, our facilitator, Miss Gloria Athaire, who is the legal officer at the Personal Data Protection Office, who also took us very comprehensively on aspects of compliance, compliance requirements for media under the Data Protection and Privacy Act. So Gloria unearthed a lot of stuff. She was looking at, she gave us the overview of the Data Protection and Privacy Act, a little bit giving us the overview again, just to build the case. And then the relevancy of the act actually to the media. Now she focused more on the media. How relevant is the Data Protection and Privacy Act for you colleagues who are in the media, who are taking stories from people, who are getting a lot of documentation, a lot of stories, a lot of people's data, etc. So she took us through that. What is the relevancy of this whole thing? And then later on, she took us through the lawful collection of data. How are we supposed to collect data lawfully, especially the personal data? How do we pick people's names, contacts, emails, medical records, etc.? So she walked us through that lawful collection of data, and she walked us through how we need to use that data whenever we collect it. She took us through the disclosure of personal data. Under what circumstances could we disclose, and how do we disclose it? Which primary entities are we not supposed to disclose, etc. So Gloria walked us through that, and it was also a very colorful and learning experience from her. And then she dived into registration requirements for media organizations, etc. So how do you apply to DPPO? The requirements, what is required, etc. And then finally, she looked at the compliance obligations for the media organizations, but also journalists. How do you comply? So Miss Gloria took us through that, and kudos to you, Gloria. I hope you're on the call again. And I want to appreciate the two comrades who came in to support us already earlier to present these aspects in front of your leaders, our bosses, etc. I think it's worth appreciating people for their service. Now, this session was also attended by so many of us, 108 of us. It was also a very big group that we reached out to, about 108, 64 were male and 44 were female. Now, from that, now that we have a base where we're coming from, today now we want to focus on the personal data breaches. When do we breach the data? What do you call a data breach? When we breach the data, what is supposed to happen to us? What can we do to avoid data breaches? In fact, when do you know that you've actually breached the personal data? Or how does the person who has given you data actually know that someone has breached their data? All that is what we are going to look at today. And after this being our last of the three, we shall have a kind of remarks from our leaders from DPPO, the PDPO rather, who will give us some sort of a closing. I know that I will invite Mr. Chimera, who has the capacity to welcome those leaders at a later time, but I wanted us to first dive into today's discussion. Let us listen in on issues of personal data breaches from our good and kind facilitator, Mr. Christopher Kalema, who is actually the cybersecurity officer. We've been talking about cybersecurity in the last 8 series. Now, Mr. Kalema is right here to share with us extensively, and I want us to welcome him with thumbs up, with flowers, with vuvuzelas, etc., as he comes to share with us. Mr. Kalema, I want to take this opportunity now to welcome you. Kindly come and share with us and pack for us today's in my language they call it endanda. So you're very welcome, Christopher, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Henry. I don't know whether you can, whether I'm audible, whether you can hear me.
We can hear you, Kalema.
All right, perfect. So I'm very happy to be part of this session today. And if you allow me, I'm going to share my screen briefly. Kindly confirm whether you can see it.
Yes, we can see it, and kindly put it in slide mode.
All right. Perfect. Okay, so good afternoon once again. My name is Christopher Kalima from the PDPO, and I'm very happy to be part of this presentation this afternoon. So today we are going to look at personal data breaches, how to handle them, and then also look at the incident reporting mechanism and the procedures or the guidelines that media practitioners have to follow whenever they are reporting personal data breaches to the office. Yes, I'm going to I'm going to break down the concepts as easy as possible. So don't let the title cybersecurity intimidate you. We are going to break them to a level whereby everyone can easily understand these concepts. And another thing I would like to let you know is that in this session, at the end, we are going to have a Q&A, and I would like you to be very keen because in this session, there are no wrong or right answers. So I would like to get your feedback as well, and also be able to respond to the feedback also, or even take this feedback to support the office further. So without further ado, allow me to immediately start the presentation. Okay, so I know you heard a lot about the Personal Data Protection Office, but in a summary, I would like to remind our dear participants about the mandate, vision, and the mission of the office. So our mandate as the office is to oversee the implementation and the enforcement of the Data Protection and Privacy Act, Cap 97. And our vision, we are looking at Uganda where each citizen understands what data protection and privacy means, and they can ably practice these concepts. Then our mission is to ensure and uphold privacy rights and safeguard personal data in this country by all through effective regulation and monitoring of those responsible for data management. So when we say monitoring of those responsible for data management, we are looking at the data controllers, the data collectors, the data processors, and also the data subjects. Yes, I'm assuming that we all know these concepts since based on the introduction, we've had a session by one of our colleagues here at the office to take you through all these concepts. So, but in case you feel like the concept did not reach home, kind of use the chat option to raise a question, and either me or my colleagues in this call will be able to respond to the query. So moving on to our functions and roles. First, we are supposed or we are required to register data collectors, controllers, and processors as clearly stipulated in the law. We also educate and guide the public and organization. And I think it's the reason why we are actually here this afternoon. We receive and investigate and also resolve complaints in relation to data protection and privacy. And that is very important for everyone to note, specifically complaints on personal data, all data protection and privacy. We also monitor compliance across sectors, including media. We issue guidance, notices, and directives still in line with data protection and privacy. We also receive and act on personal data breach notifications, which I believe is the gist of this session this afternoon. So if I might dive into what we're going to learn today, I hope by the end of this training, you learn these concepts. The first one is for you to understand what counts as a personal data breach. Yes, people have a tendency, or I think they do it by mistake of confusing personal data breach, and a security incident. So we are going to look at the difference of these three concepts. What comprises of what? We are also going to look at ways in which we can recognize risks within our media houses, within our newsrooms, and the risks mainly that cause personal data breaches. We're also going to learn concepts and apply practical concepts that we can apply practically within our media houses. And I will make sure that the concepts or the controls that I share with you all are low-cost measures that don't require big budgets or so much resources for you to implement them within your newsrooms or media houses. We are going to understand or learn how and whom and when a breach must be reported to the Personal Data Protection Office. And lastly, we are going to understand the PDPO's role, its powers, and the penalties and compliance. And the last one will be applying these lessons through a real Ugandan media case studies that I'll share. So at the end, I'll share some case studies, not particularly stories about media houses reporting incidents to the PDPO, but rather I will share scenarios in relation to personal data breaches that will be able to help you relate whatever concepts you've learned into how you can actually implement them within your daily life as a media practitioner. Okay, so why does data protection and privacy matter to journalists and media practitioners? Because we know that every day in the way you do your work, you handle and collect and store a lot of personal information that you collect from the field. And this information might be about the sources, might be about the informants, might be about the whistleblowers. It can be eyewitnesses. It can be about minors, children, and the underprivileged people within our communities. So I believe that media practitioners, you collect a lot of personal information. Some of you actually don't even know that you're actually collecting personal information. And to make matters worse, there is a habit that not only media practitioners have, but every Ugandan has of collecting everything. There is this tendency of collecting everything and thinking that you might need it in the future, yet in reality, you won't even look at it in the future. So as media practitioners, I know that you collect a lot of personal information. So this training really is important to you. So why do you need data protection and privacy, and why does it matter? Because if you learn the concepts and the principles of data protection and privacy, you can easily protect the sources of the information that you interact with in the field. And by default, you have a liability to comply with the Data Protection and Privacy Act as data collectors, as data processors, as data controllers, and so on and so forth. But the main crucial point is the public trust. Because if you approach me and maybe you are coming up with a story, a media story about something, maybe a topic or maybe something that has happened, and I try to give you this information confidentially, and then later on learn that you've actually published my profile, all my personal information to the public without my consent, that alone lowers the trust that I have within the media house. So public trust is very crucial, especially in this era whereby there are so many media houses, striving to be number one. So yes, it's very important. So let us understand what personal data breach is. There is a definition in the Act, and at this point, I would like to, before I say the exact definition from the Act, I would like to hear from the participants. The chat is open. Kindly share what you understand when you hear the word personal data breach. So you can, in the meantime, you can use the chat to share what you understand by the term personal data breach. Mr. Bambale said it's misusing my personal data by the data collector. Okay, that is close. Any other volunteer to share what they understand by the term personal data breach? You can simply use not just a definition from somewhere, but simply just share a few words that comes into your mind when you hear the word, when you hear the words or the term personal data breach. Okay, so what is a personal data breach? A personal data breach is when I mistakenly share my data. Okay, we are going to learn more about this. Someone said, Dennis said, it's when personal information gets accessed. It's when personal information gets accessed, lost, stolen, or disclosed without permission. Yes, thank you, Dennis. Ismail said a personal data breach is a Twitter incident that results in the accidental or unlawful destruction, loss, alteration, unauthorized disclosure, or access to personal data. Thank you. Someone's past private information is seen, lost, or used by people who shouldn't have it. That is Francis. Thank you, Francis. Wow. So I can see that people really have ideas about what personal data breach is. Good. Thank you so much. You can keep putting your thoughts in the chat. I'll come back to them. So what is a personal data breach according to the law? A personal data breach happens when there is reasonable belief, and this is very important, reasonable belief. This means you should not just think, but your belief has to be very reasonable, that someone's personal data has been accessed. By someone, they mean even you yourself, has been accessed, acquired, disclosed, altered, destroyed, or concealed by a person who is not authorized to do so. Yes. All right. So that is the definition of what personal data breach is. But in simple terms, a personal data breach involves a compromisation of a confidentiality principle. Those that have a background will have ever learned about the CIA triad. The CIA triad is a common concept that is used in information security, whereby C stands for confidentiality, I stands for integrity, and S stands for availability, CIA. So whenever there is a personal data breach, one or even all of those pillars in the CIA triad are compromised. So starting with the first one, which is confidentiality. So whenever someone accesses your personal data and then shares it or looks at it or views it without your consent, that means they've compromised your confidentiality. Then integrity is compromised when you talk about personal data breaches, because in most cases, whenever a person gets or collects information, personal data from you, they can change it or even delete it or alter it in a way that you did not provide in a way that is not in the original format that you had earlier provided. And then lastly is availability. So if, for instance, if the information that you provide to someone gets destroyed permanently or temporarily, that is the principle or the pillar of availability. So if you combine all of these three pillars into the CIA triad, and whenever your information, whenever those three pillars are compromised in relation to collection, sharing, and storing of personal data, then that is a personal data breach. Okay, so, but what is the difference between a security incident and a personal data breach? So a security incident, this is an event that threatens confidentiality, integrity, or availability of systems or all information. So this is very important. The last part of this definition. Systems or information. Yes. And some of the examples include a phishing email is blocked by spam filters. I don't know whether you okay, a phishing email is these types of emails. Let me use an example, a common example. You receive an email from someone who is telling you that they are the king of a kingdom in Cameroon, and they have gold, they have riches, and they want to share these riches with you. But for them to do that, they need you to share your mobile money PIN. Or maybe log into a particular platform. So that is what a phishing email looks like. And in most cases, the motive of the person sending it is to either sell information you or use the information that you can provide to launch an attack on a system or an organization. So that alone is a security incident. Another incident can be about a server going offline because of a distributed denial of service, DDoS. So distributed denial of service is when so many attackers, or one attacker who uses so many computers launches attack onto a particular server. And then the server is overwhelmed, and then it goes down because of so many requests at the same time. So that is still an example of a security incident. Or ransomware. Ransomware, which I believe might be common in this space, especially in media, or it will be common in the near future. It's when a malicious actor sends malicious software onto your device or your server or your computer or even your phone. And this malicious software encrypts whichever data is on that device and prevents you from accessing it, not until you pay some amount of money to the malicious actor to decrypt, and then you'll be able to access it. So these are still examples of security incidents. And then another one is attempted or successful login from a hacker. A hacker from somewhere globally is able to access your systems, and then they can do whatever they want to do. That is an incident. But what differentiates a security incident from a personal data breach? A personal data breach actually results into someone's personal data being accessed, altered, or lost without authority. Yes. In most cases, you might encounter a scenario maybe whereby a server goes down and there is no evidence of personal data being taken away from that server. So that alone is not a personal data breach, but rather a security incident. But in case that incident involves at any point personal information or data, then that is a personal data breach. I hope that's clear. So ideally, a personal data breach can be as a result of a security incident. So these are some of the examples of personal data breaches. So for instance, a reporter is in the field. They have maybe they have a list of sources they want to consult or talk to, and these sources maybe the list contains personal information like email address, phone number, and so on. And then a hacker accesses this list maybe by breaking into the reporter's PC, or maybe accessing uh, the reporter's mobile device. So that is a personal data breach. Then another one is the staff sends collected personal data to an outsider by mistake, and this happens a lot. So for instance, you have to so for instance, let me give an example. Maybe in your media house you have a person called Johnny Chintu, and then out there you have a friend called James Chintu. So when you're typing in the email address, maybe you are sending a list or maybe sensitive personal information in your media house to your supervisor, who is called John Chintu, and then by mistake you send that information to James Chintu, who is your friend from out there. So that is a personal data breach. And then lastly, another example is a staff laptop with the interviewee's data is stolen. And this happens a lot. So for instance, you're walking by the street and then you run into thugs. Then the thugs take away your laptop. And the bad news, unfortunately, the laptop did not have security controls like passwords, multi-factor authentication, and that the data is not encrypted. So that is a personal data breach if if the thieves are able to access the laptop and then able to see whichever data is on that laptop. So ideally, from the explanation I've given you, the key takeaway is every personal data breach is a security incident, but not every security incident is a personal data breach. Okay, so when you're reporting to the office, you have to look at whatever has happened and then assess whether there is an involvement of personal data being breached or being accessed by unauthorized parties. If it's there, report. If it's not there, you have to reach out to to other entities like the police, like UGISAT, that can support you further. Okay. So how does this look in like in a Uganda news? I've already given these examples, but imagine a reporter's unlocked phone containing confidential sources of the contacts of the sources is stolen at a public event. What could happen? Imagine a list of whistleblowers is attached to the wrong email and sent to an external recipient. What would be the impact of this thing happening to the whistleblowers, or this scenario happening to the whistleblowers? Imagine a newsroom email account is hacked and the identities of the whistleblowers are exposed to the public. Imagine the commotion or the trauma that will be caused. Imagine the victim's national ID or photo is attached to a story and shared without their consent. I want us to look at this in the perspective of a normal citizen. You are interviewed by a media practitioner or a journalist in the field, and then you agree with that journalist that, hey, I've given this information, but please don't publish my profile in the public. And then you wake up one day in the morning and you're receiving random messages. Everyone is calling you, asking you, why would you do something like that? And then you check on the news, your profile is out there, your personal information is exposed. Imagine how that would feel if you are the person on the other end. So as journalists, we have to be very cautious, especially when it comes to consent, receiving consent from the people we are collecting information from. So in this slide, I shared some of the information that you media practitioners collect on a daily basis. And so, for instance, I'm sure you collect a lot of personal information, the sources and informants. You collect information from victims and witnesses. You have probably a database of subscribers for those who have newspapers online. You have a contact list of the different stakeholders you can reach out to in case you need more information on a particular topic on any day. You have ID documents, photographs of different interviewees, but also including the employees within your media houses. You collect a lot of location and travel data. You have financial details of the interviewees and the employees. You also collect health and other sensitive personal data. And I also collect information about children, personal information about children. So what are the common causes of data breaches in newsrooms? If you look at the top row, you'll see that all these causes are human related, either human or process related. And the lower row, these are just technical causes. So starting with the first one of the most causes of data breaches, not only the newsrooms, but also in other sectors, is human error. Yes, we as the office will receive a number of personal data breach notifications whereby a person by accident sends information, internal confidential information to external service providers, to external entities, and this is quite common. We are going to learn about how to actually prevent this from happening. What I can say about human error is that before you send any sensitive information, especially sensitive and confidential information that might contain personal information, you have to verify the sources before you actually send. It's very important. If possible, you can actually do or apply what we call a mega checker control. If you have a police next to you, they can confirm whether the sources or the email addresses that you want to send this information to actually accurate and are the ones that you should be sending this information to. So another common cause is loss of stolen devices, and I know as humans, we like simple things. You don't want to put a password in your phone because the password makes it hard for you to easily check and scroll through your different applications on your phone. Maybe you don't want to show your spouse that you actually are doing shady things, so you don't put a password, show that you actually very holy. So in case this device gets stolen, that means it will be very easy for whoever who steals this device to see whatever information you have on that device. But the other thing is sometimes we store information on laptops, and then when these laptops get stolen, the bad actors can actually get the hard disks on these laptops and then just plug them into other sources, other devices, and then they can be able to recover whichever information you had stored on, regardless of whether you have a password on your laptop or not. So this calls for us to employ other things like BitLocker to encrypt the device, the data on the devices, to be on the safer side. Then another cause is weak passwords. I know some of us, like I said, we want simple things because you don't want to waste time. You put your PIN as 1234, or maybe you put your password as password, thinking no one has ever thought about that. Maybe you put your you make your password to be maybe your username, or maybe your child's name, or maybe your mother's name, or maybe even put there your date of birth. So all these are just weak passwords. If I had time, I would have shared with you a list of the most commonly used passwords to show you that actually the bad actors on the internet actually have a list of these passwords that you might think are very complicated to other people. So we have to create strong passwords, and as a practice, I usually tell people to localize their passwords, because if you put your password in English, there are so many passwords lists on the internet that have English words, and these English words are very easy to to use when brute forcing into an account. So if possible, localize the password. You can get a Uganda word or maybe a local language word, and then make sure that the password is at least 8 characters long, and it has a combination of a capital letter, small letters, a number, and special characters. Yes. So another main cause of data breaches has to do with email mistakes, and this actually speaks closely to human error. Instead of sending the email or the information to Johnny Chintu, we send it to James Chintu. Then another one is misconfigured cloud storage. I know we are moving into an era of cloud computing, and I will receive so many incidents of personal data breaches whereby a company A tries to use maybe a cloud service provider B, and then they use weak configurations while setting up the cloud storage. So this makes it easier for the attackers, the bad actors on the internet to be able to access and break into these platforms, and then be able to extract this information. So there are also some other technical and external controls. For instance, insider threats, whereby if you look at cases of disgruntled employees, internal staff that share this kind of information to outsiders, this is also very possible and common. We have cyber attacks. We have ransomware attacks. I talked about ransomware briefly. We have social engineering and phishing. I talked about phishing. Social engineering is, so for instance, if I come to your media house and then I pretend to be working with the personal data protection office. Matter of fact, I can even go to maybe NAS and print an ID that resembles a person who works at personal data protection office. And then when I reach your premise, I request for information, or maybe your data inventory, and then be able to access the personal or the databases of the personal data that you've stored within your premise. So that is social engineering, pretending to be someone you are not, or something that you are not, with the motive of getting either data or maybe doing something shady. Then third-party service providers. This is very important because in most cases, media houses don't work in silos. So this calls for collaboration or maybe outsourcing different service providers from outside to come and deliver services. So, and just to let you know, most of the major cyber security attacks that involve data breaches or maybe personal data breaches, in most cases, they involve a third party somewhere. So for instance, you might, as a media house, you might put in robust security controls to safeguard the personal data that you store, but then you outsource a service provider A, and then you grant them access to your databases. Yet these service providers don't have the same level of controls that you have as an institution. So that means attackers can go through the service providers and then break into your systems and extract this information, this personal data. Okay, so there are three categories or types of personal data breaches. And the first one is confidentiality breach. I talked about the CIA triad, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So when it comes to confidentiality data breach, personal data is disclosed to or accessed by someone who should not see it. That is confidentiality. Something is meant to be confidential, but then you disclose it to someone who's not supposed to see it. So an example could be an interviewee's identity is leaked to a third party who's not supposed to actually look at this kind of information, who's not supposed to look at the source's identity or the interviewee's identity. Then another one is integrity breach. And here, personal data is altered, corrupted, or tampered without authority. Yes, integrity is all about altering personal data. So an example is a victim statement is edited without consent before publishing. I shared this example a few minutes back that imagine you go to someone, you pick information from them, but then when you're publishing, you publish something else instead of what the person gave me. So that is an integrity breach. Then we have availability breach. And this happens when personal data is lost, destroyed, or becomes inaccessible when needed. An example is a ransomware that locks a database of a newsroom or a media house. Ransomware is when a bad actor breaks into your system and then they encrypt everything to make it inaccessible for you. So these are the types of personal data breaches. So let's talk about the law. What does the law actually prohibit? The first one is unauthorized disclosure. Knowing sharing someone's personal data without their consent is prohibited by the law. Then unauthorized access. This happens when you acquire or obtain personal data that you're not permitted to have. Still, the law prohibits this. Data tampering, which speaks to integrity breach. This happens when you unlawfully destroy, delete, or conceal personal data without the other person's consent. Then unlawful sale. We've seen this happening a lot, especially if you look at people who stay in ghetto, like us, like me. Sometimes you go to buy maybe pancakes, maybe you go to buy cassava chips, and then you see someone is personal information wrapped. Look at they use a document that contains someone's personal information to wrap the cassava chips or the pancakes. So that means the person at some point, an entity had that physical copy of a record that contains a personal information, but then they either sold it to another entity to use it to wrap cassava chips. We've also seen pharmacies doing the same. You go to a medical camp, they record your health sensitive information, and then as you are buying Panadol at a clinic, you open inside and you see that actually your information is used to wrap or to come up with the packages which they use to supply or sell these drugs. So the law highly prohibits that. Then let's talk about prevention. How do we prevent that personal data breaches from happening? And like the title says, prevention starts with everyone. There's a tendency by different stakeholders within different institutions to always leave anything to do with personal data breaches to the IT. I would like to let you know that this is not only responsibility of the IT. It's a responsibility for everyone, provided that you work within a particular institution that collects, processes, yes, that collects or processes personal data. So what are the technical measures we can put in place? I mentioned about the password management guidelines, how to come up with a strong password. All those are just technical. Organization measures include coming up with things like policies, guidelines, procedures, having trainings on personal data breaches and how to handle them. All those are organization measures. Then the other thing that you should do to prevent personal data breaches is to anticipate risks before they actually happen. So, for instance, if you know that you're going to implement a project that will require you to collect a lot of personal information, you should sit down as a team and then you foresee the risks that might happen and then come up with the controls to prevent or treat those risks before they actually happen. Then another control that you can actually come up with is doing regular audits to verify whether the controls or the safeguards that you put in place are working and update them as new risks emerge. Then the other thing you can do is to designate a data protection officer in case you don't have one. The office requires to have one, and it's very important, especially for organization, institutions like media houses that handle special personal data. Then at some point, you should be also observing and complying with the professional rules as media practitioners. Sometimes industries come up with their own guidelines or procedures of this that should be followed. And as we higher recommend the, the, the data subjects to comply with the standards. Still, on preventing data breaches, there is a principle of data minimization that you can apply. And data minimization is all about collecting and keeping the personal data you actually need for a particular activity. Yes, like I said, we have a tendency of collecting everything, including things or including information that we won't even need in publishing our stories or maybe finish or implement something. So data minimization requires us to first critically assess whether we actually need this information or actually collect it. Then staff awareness, it is very important. And it is very important for the staff, regardless of whether they are just cleaners within the media institution, regardless of their position, they have to be trained on data protection and privacy. So you have to create awareness and train champions within your institution to be in position to report personal data breaches in case they happen. But they can't report these breaches unless they actually know what a personal data breach is. So moving on to another one. Secure interview recordings. Yes, I know we have recorders. We have we use our smartphones sometimes we are required to secure these interview recordings, not just interview recordings, but any personal information that we collect from the people in the field. We're supposed to secure it in a safe storage. Then have an incident response plan. This is very important. And there is a saying that not having a plan is a plan to fail itself. So if you don't have, as an institution, if you don't have an incident response plan, that means if an incident, a personal data breach incident happens, you will stagger because you actually don't know what to do. You waste a lot of time and you will do a lot of mistakes. So it is very important that as media houses, you come up with incident response plans and make sure that you test them periodically, because it doesn't make sense coming up with a plan and then you store it somewhere without you reviewing to assess whether it is actually still relevant. So you have to make sure that you have this plan and test it as frequently as possible. Because in these plans, in most cases, they include the responsibilities of each stakeholder within an institution. And so for instance, if an incident happens, everyone knows exactly what to do, who to report to, and when and how, and so on and so forth. Then source protection, limit who knows a source's identity, and use code names in shared files. Yes, this is what we call anonymization. You try as much as possible to make it hard for a person who is unauthorized to access this information, lands on this information, to make sense out of whatever you've captured. So it's very important that you anonymize information, personal data, as journalists, especially if you know that you are actually in a risk environment. Then vendor management, like I said, the most major data breaches that have happened in this world so far, the majority come from poor vendor management and failure of entities to actually conduct due diligence on these service providers before they bring them on board. So it's very important that you vet cloud, printing, IT vendors, even the cleaners who you come to clean your institution. They have to be also vetted, because what happens when you leave the office open, these cleaners will be able to access this information. So if maybe you leave them on the desk, so if you don't vet them properly, you stand at the chance of personal data breaches happening. Okay, so still on preventing data breaches, I've talked about password management, and I was going through the chats, and then someone said that a late friend of mine had a password called important. This is very funny. But you see, it's memorable, and it's very hard for an external person, maybe out there in another country, to be able to actually guess that password. Yeah, so it's a good one. Yeah, so another control is I talked about secure file sharing. There are so many platforms you can use to share personal information, all files that contain personal information. So for instance, if you're sharing maybe a file or maybe a database of files to your supervisor, you can encrypt this folder before you actually send it, or maybe zip it with a password and then share the password through an alternative channel. There are also other channels like Signal, WhatsApp. I'm not sure whether it's end-to-end encryption, but Signal is good. You can check it out and see whether it can work for you, especially for journalists. This is very important because you handle sometimes sensitive stories and all that. And then you can also use things like view once from WhatsApp. You can use disappearing messages from WhatsApp, such that whenever someone gets that information is deleted afterwards, to prevent that person using that information for other stuff that are not relevant to the reason why you collected the information in the first place. Multi-factor authentication is very important as well. So this multi-factor authentication works in a way that, so for instance, if you have maybe a Gmail account and you have a password on that Gmail account, what happens if that Gmail account is compromised? Maybe your password is weak. So for MFA, or multi-factor authentication, it puts another layer of control. In case the password gets compromised, the person to get into your account, they have to punch in probably codes that are sent to your phone number, or maybe log into a separate application that has codes that are supposed to be punched in into the login interface for the person to be able to log in. So multi-factor authentication is important, and I advise people to apply it as well. Device security is also important. We talk about lock screens. I know, like I said, some people find it convenient to leave their screens open. No need to put the password every 10 minutes you come back. But this is very risky because you don't know the motive of your neighbor who's sitting close to you. They might do something shady in your absence. So lock screens are very important. Then the other important control is the remote wipe. Yes. The smartphones we use nowadays are very advanced to the point that you can actually do remote wipes in case someone steals your phone. So if you're handling a lot of sensitive personal information, I would advise you to go through this, to go and implement this control, because it will save you a lot of headaches. Like I said, you never know what happens if the person steals your phone. And the technology is that advanced to the point that regardless of whether you put a password or not, the person can be able to recover or crack into your stolen smartphone, and then you'll be able to access personal information. And by the way, we've seen this happening. We've seen a lot of non-consensual image sharing, whereby a victim, and their phone gets stolen, and then the thieves are able to break into and then extract those private videos and then they circulate them on the internet. So these controls are very important, and they should be implemented. Then updating software regularly. And updating software, it means updating the operating system on your computer, the operating system on your phone, and also making sure that the applications that you have on these devices are up to date. Okay, then encryption. You have to ensure that the sensitive files are encrypted, and also make sure that you use platforms on the internet that are actually encrypted. So remember, encryption works both in transit and at rest. So whenever you go to a website that doesn't have encryption enabled, you should be very, very, very careful. Then physical document security. Please lock away notebooks that contain personal information, printouts, ID copies, and shred copies of physical copies that contain personal data that you no longer need. And the other most important crucial control is the clean desk policy. Yes, this is very important, especially in the newsroom, whereby I know you work, sometimes you work 24/7, but then when you're leaving, some of the staff, when they're leaving their desks at 5 p.m., they forget to clear their desks, leaving copies, physical copies of papers containing personal information visible for everyone to see. So as media practitioners, you have to make sure that you apply these controls. They will save you a lot of trouble and headaches. So, let's talk about the 10 good practices that you can actually apply in your context. And these are low-cost practices that you can actually imply without a big budget or resources. The first one, if you can remember anything from this training, I request that you remember these 10 good practices. The first one is to collect only the personal data that you truly need. Yes, and I told you for you to be able to understand that you actually need this information is by first assessing what actually you want from the interview before you actually go for that interview. The second one, use strong, unique passwords everywhere. The third one is turn on multi-factor authentication. It's very important. The fourth one is encrypted devices and sensitive files. The fifth one is to protect source identities at every stage. The other one is to double check recipients before sending sensitive emails. The other one is to lock and secure devices when unattended. The eighth one is to store recordings and documents only as long as needed. The ninth one is to train all staff on data handling basics. And the last one is to know who to call the moment something goes wrong. And for you to be in that position, as the media house, you need to have an incident response plan. Okay, so before I jump into the legal reporting obligations, is there any question? Or we can have questions at the end.
We shall open a Q&A, so maybe we could finish the presentation, then we can open a Q&A.
Okay, perfect. So let's continue. So according to the law, a data collector, processor, or controller must notify our office immediately after a breach occurs, or as soon there is reasonable belief that one has occurred. So this means that the moment you get a notification on your end, maybe an IT person comes to you and says, I think something wrong has happened. And then you assess and find out that actually personal data is involved in that incident. You are required to immediately report to the office. Yes. You're going to look at the steps that you should be following. But I usually advise stakeholders that in case you suffer a personal data breach, the first thing you should do is to contain that personal data breach from spreading. So imagine it's a ransomware attack and one of the devices on your network shows signs of being compromised. The first thing that you should do is to first remove that device from the network. That is containing the breach from spreading to other nodes or devices on the network. Then after all simultaneously, you can notify the office. Yes. So what must be included in the report? So before I talk about what must be included in the report, there is a form called Form 7. If you go to our website, you can find it there. And this Form 7 is what you will use to report a personal data breach. And in that Form 7, it has the different sections. And some of them are, the first one is the nature of the breach. Then the second one is the data and categories involved, because you have to give us digits. Then the other one is the number of affected data subjects from the assessment that you make there, and then how many data subjects do you think are involved? And this does not have to be conclusive. This report does not have to be conclusive. You can update it as time passes by. So what we need from you is to first notify the office, and then we can provide advice on how you can actually handle uh, how you can handle this personal data breach before it escalates, in case you have it. Other things that are included in Form 7 include the likely consequences, the measures taken to prevent reoccurrence, and the contacts of the data protection office. So what are the steps of reporting a breach? The first one is to detect and contain. The moment you find out that you are suffering a personal data breach, you have to contain it. And in most cases, if you have an incident response plan, the first and the second steps can be done simultaneously. As you are containing, or as you are seeking support from someone to help you contain whatever is happening or whatever has happened, you notify the office using Form 7. Then after notifying, then you can do a thorough assessment of the breach to find out how many data subjects have been affected, which kind of systems are affected, what are the consequences, all of those things. Then step number 4, we will get back to you with guidance. And in the guidance that we provide, we'll let you know whether you will notify the affected data subjects or not. And then you can document and review the incident and make sure that it doesn't happen again in the future. So continuing from that, if the office at one point gives you guidance or guides you that you should notify the data subjects affected because of a personal data breach, you are supposed to alert them using the following notification channels. The first one is the email, second one is phone calls, and the other one is prominent website notice. You can put a notice on your website alerting the different data subjects that are affected, or you can actually even make a post in mass media or maybe in a newspaper. Yes. And God forbid, but it will look very awkward if a media house is reporting a personal data breach. So for instance, it may be a particular newspaper that suffered a personal data breach, reporting a personal data breach using their own newspapers, alerting the data subjects that will suffer the data breach. Yes. So about the notification channels, the office will guide depending on the gravity of the personal data breach, will guide you which channels you're supposed to use to reach out to the data subjects to alert them, notify them about the breach. So as the office, our role is to receive breach notifications from all data controllers and collectors, and then we assess and report the risk to affected individuals. We also provide guidance on the measures we can put in place to prevent reoccurrence. We also investigate and monitor compliance with the Act in relation to handling personal data breaches. And then we issue enforcement notices requiring corrective action. In case we see that the media house is or an entity is going astray. So what is the breach reporting cycle? How does it roll? How does it happen? So for instance, a breach occurs at one of the media houses. A media house is required to report to the PDPO through a data protection officer. PDPO receives and the notification, assesses the impact and the gravity of the personal data breach, and then issues a guidance and notice to the affected media house on how to handle or how to notify, if required, on how to notify the data subjects. Then a remedial action is taken by the media house to prevent the breach from happening again in the future. And then lastly, the media house monitors and ensures that the controls applied are effective and are efficient to prevent the breach from happening again in the future. So these are some of the enforcement powers of the office. The one is compliance and notice. We can issue formal notices requiring media houses to take specific corrective action, like I said. We do investigations in case we find out that the person that have been reported lacks a little bit of detail. We can send a team on ground to come and assess what actually happened and come up with an investigation report with recommendations. We can also issue corrective directives to fix processes and strengthen controls, and then we also do compliance and monitoring. So let's talk about the offenses and penalties under the Act. So, for instance, look at the first category, general offenses, and the first one actually talks about general offenses. And what triggers general offenses? In case someone unlawfully obtains or discloses or tampers and or destroys personal data. And the penalty is up to 240 currency points, or imprisonment to 10 years, up to 10 years. So a currency point is 20,000 Ghana shillings. So you can do the mathematics and find out how much that costs. And sometimes people look at the currency points and say, yeah, I have the money for in case that happens. But if you look at the next part of that same penalty, the imprisonment of up to 10 years, I think that is very good. Then the other one is corporate liability. And what triggers this is the corporation commits an offense. Officers who knowingly authorized are also liable. So the penalty is a fine of up to 2% of annual gross turnover. Then non-compliance with the notice, the penalty is 3 currency points per day in default. And in case the data subject suffers damage or distress because of a breach, they may claim compensation through the courts of laws. So this is a lot, but like I said in the very beginning of this presentation, I believe the highest penalty has to do with reputational damage. Reputation damage, because if anything, media houses have to keep their reputation up there. So in case a data breach happens, that the reputation is damaged, I think that is really, really bad. So why does compliance protected? It protects public trust. If you want the media house to be respected, if you want the citizens, the Ugandans respect the media house, then you have to ensure that you don't all, you don't suffer from so many data breaches, data breaches. Then compliance, another one has to do with protecting press freedom, because a media sector known for handling data responsibly strengthens the case for continuing with editorial independence. If I know that you handle my personal information properly, I think that creates press freedom. Then it protects the organization and reduces legal exposure, reputation damage, and the costly incident response uh, processes. Compliance is not about fear of punishment. It is about earning and keeping the trust that makes good journalism possible. You should not fear comply. All right, so let's look at the case studies. I prepared some scenarios that we're going to look at into detail, and we are going to break them one by one, looking at what went wrong, what are legal considerations, and then appropriate responses, and what lessons you can actually learn from these scenarios. The first one is, imagine you're a reporter and you file a story on a road accident, and that story includes the full names, home addresses, and phone numbers of the injured victims, copy directly from a police report without checking if this was necessary or authorized by the victims. So what went wrong actually here is that unverified and personal details were published without assessing necessity, the consent, or risk to the individuals named in the story. Then what are the legal considerations? This can amount to unauthorized disclosure of personal data and negligent processing under the Act. What would have been the appropriate response? It would have been ideal to take the story down or redact the details immediately, notify the editor, the data protection officer, and assess if a personal data breach report, the PDPO, is required. So what lessons we learned from this scenario is to always ask, the readers need this identifying detail before publishing personal information from any source, including official reports, but also getting consent from the victims before you publish these stories. So moving on to the next scenario, case study, and it's about sensitive documents sent to the wrong recipient. So imagine you're an editor and you draft an investigative report containing a whistleblower's name, contact details to a mailing list, but a wrong address autocompletes and the email reaches an intended external recipient. So what actually went wrong? No verification of the recipient list before sending. And I talked about this. Before you send any information, before you send any document that contains personal data, all sensitive personal information, you have to verify, you have to double check. I talked about the maker checker control. If possible, get your neighbor to verify, your supervisor to verify whether the address is actually accurate before you send. So what went wrong? No verification of recipient list before sending. The sensitive attachment was not access restricted or password protected. What are the legal considerations? An accidental unauthorized disclosure is treated as a breach. Intent is not required. Well, liability to arise. Then what are the appropriate response? If possible, you can record the email and then contact the recipient request the deletion and alert the whistleblower and inform the DPO and the PDPO immediately. What are the lessons learned? Always double check recipients on sensitive emails. Disable autocomplete for high risk lists and password protect confidential attachments. So imagine you send an attachment that has confidential information and then you send it to a new recipient. But then the good thing you had secured that attachment with a password. So even if the other person gets access to it, they cannot read the details, the attachment, all the information, the attachment. Moving on to case study 3. So imagine you're a field reporter and your laptop containing unencrypted interview recordings and notes from vulnerable interviews is stolen from a car during a reporting trip up country. What went wrong here? The first thing you have to look at is the interview recordings and notes are not encrypted. And probably the laptop doesn't even have a password. So I believe those are the issues. So no encryption, no strong password, and no remote wipe capability enabled. Like I said, remote wipe capability is very important because it will safeguard you a lot. In case anything happens, the laptop is stolen, you can easily go back to your newsroom and then activate a remote wipe feature, and the information stored on that laptop is erased completely. What are legal considerations? This is a confidentiality and availability breach, and the organization must assess and likely report it to the PDPO immediately. What is the appropriate response? Remotely wipe or lock the device if possible, change related account passwords, assess who is affected, and report to the PDPO. Yes. In most cases, if a staff is involved in a personal data breach, the logical next step is to reset the passwords of that staff's accounts to ensure that even if the other person accesses the laptop, they'll be prompted to put in a new password. Then what are the lessons learned? Encrypt all field devices, enable remote wipe, and avoid storing more interview data locally than the story actually requires. Yeah, so this means that the moment you get sensitive, whenever you cover a story that contains sensitive personal information, if you have cloud storage, make sure that you store that story up there, and then you delete the copy that you have on your device to ensure that in case anything happens, even if the device is stolen, you still have the other copy, and you won't suffer from a personal data breach. Then case study number 4, imagine a phishing email. Like we said, the phishing email is, so for instance, you receive an email from someone who is pretending to be someone they are not, and they require you maybe to share your personal information, or maybe share your password, or maybe share your PIN, mobile money PIN. That is what we call a phishing email. So imagine a phishing email tricks a junior reporter into entering their newsroom email password on a fake login page, giving an attacker access to years of source communications and tips. Yes, so imagine you are tricked into giving out your password for an account. Maybe that account is of a system that stores or that has databases over the different news stories you've covered over some good period of time, both unpublished and published. And it lands into the bad actors' hands. So what went wrong? No multi-factor authentication was enabled, and the staff had not been trained to recognize phishing attempts. I talked about training and creating awareness. It's very important, and this means that in case any of the staff within the media house um, is or witnesses or receives a phishing email, they can easily report them to the respective stakeholders like IT security, but also notify others to stop them from actually clicking on malicious links within this email. So providing information. So training is very, very important. What are the legal considerations? Unauthorized access to personal data of sources and tipsters is a serious breach with potential self-identification. So still this is recognized as a personal data breach. What would be the appropriate response? The appropriate response would be to reset credentials immediately, enable multi-factor authentication, assess what was accessed, warn affected sources, and notify the PDPO. What lesson do we pick from this scenario? Is that multi-factor authentication and regular phishing awareness training are very crucial. Oh, nice. And like I said, these are very cheap and easier to implement within your media houses, and they are very easy to adapt. So the last case is about a data leak through a third-party cloud platform. Imagine a media house uses a free cloud storage tool, share raw footage with the freelance contractor, and these are very, very common. In forgetting one of the tools we used to use back then to share information, large chunks of information to other people without you opening up an account. So imagine you use such a tool on the internet, and then the folder is left public by default, and it exposes interview footage and personal details to anyone with the links. I know sometimes we usually use Google Drive, but then when you're setting the access rights on these created Google Drive folders, sometimes we leave it to be open for anyone to access. So instead of just inviting one person by typing in the email, we leave it open for anyone to access that folder. So God forbid if that link lands into wrong hands, or maybe it is circulated on the internet, that means that can access the contents of that folder. So what went wrong in this scenario? No due diligence was done. The third parties platforms import privacy settings before sensitive devices. I know as humans, we have a tendency of trusting whatever we see on the internet. Sometimes you go to a website, since it's looking good, you immediately trust it with all your heart. Don't even check the privacy settings to find out whether they are robust. And what happens is that in most cases, even whenever they prompt you to read their privacy policy in terms of service, we simply click accept and move on very, very fast. So as a practice, we should not trust whatever we're seeing on the internet. We should first do a due diligence and check whether these platforms actually have robust privacy settings, and also, if possible, go through the privacy notices of these websites, and sometimes even doing a quick Google check to find out whether the third-party tool has ever been involved in a cyber attack and save a lot of trouble. So what are the legal considerations? The organization remains responsible for data handled by third parties. This is a confidentiality breach regardless of intent. Yes. That's because you use another third party to process your information. it doesn't take any responsibility that you actually created that information in the first place. So you are still live. Then what would have been the appropriate response? Restrict the folder immediately, review who accessed it, notify affected interviews if required, and report to the office. What lessons do we learn from this scenario? You have to vet or assess third-party tools and vendors before use, and make sure that you check sharing settings, and make sure you check the sharing settings and ensure that they're not set to public, but rather private. So I prepared some key messages to take back to the newsroom. And the first one is, actually this is more like a summary of whatever we discussed. A personal data breach is unauthorized access, disclosure, alteration, or loss of someone's personal data. It doesn't require a sophisticated hacker. You know, whenever someone hears a personal data breach, what comes into their mind might think that these are very complicated things. Those are for cybersecurity experts. But even, like I said, even a cleaner within a media house can actually cause a personal data breach. The other key takeaway is always report suspected breaches to the PDPO immediately, because even laying itself is a violation of the law. And this is my kind ask. Don't sit on breaches. Because if you sit on breaches and you don't share them, or notify the PDPO, that means you might not be in position to get the guidance to put in place controls to prevent these breaches from happening again. So kindly report the breaches whenever they happen. Then the other key message is most breaches are preventable through simple low-cost habits. We talked about strong passwords, we talked about MFA, multi-factor authentication. We talked about the procedures on how to carefully handle sensitive files. So all these are just low-cost habits that can actually be implemented within our spaces to ensure that these breaches don't happen again, don't happen in our newsrooms or media houses. The other one is documentation matters. And like I said, you should have things like, to start with, the incident response plan. You should have policies like the privacy, data protection and privacy policy. You should have the information security policy. And you should have a register of the breaches that happen within the media house. For you, because they always said that we always learn from our mistakes. And in most cases, this repeats itself. So if anything happens, if a breach happens and you have a record of that breach happening before, you can always go back to the register and pick a few insights here and there on how to actually handle that breach. So documentation is very important. And as PDPO, whenever we're doing investigations, we look for evidence that actually have this documentation in place. Because implementation doesn't come from the sky. There has to be some guidance, some guiding documents or documentation. I hope the staff will implement whatever they have to implement. Another key message: compliance protects your sources, your audience, and the organization's credibility all at once. Yes, so complying with the law protects your sources, it protects your audience, and your credibility as an institution. Lastly, we are going to look at the do's and don'ts for journalists. This is the individual practical takeaway session. Verify recipients before sending sensitive information. Use strong passwords and enable multi-factor authentication. Encrypt devices used in the field. Report suspected breaches immediately. Limit access to source identifying information where possible. We talked about anonymization. What are the don'ts? Publish identifying details. Readers don't need. Don't publish identifying details. Readers don't need. For instance, you're covering a story about a victim, a story, and then probably you highlight their relationship affairs, which is not a gift. Assuming the story is not about relationships and all that. Then don't store source data on personal or unsecured devices. Don't use public free cloud folders for sensitive material. And don't wait to assess reputation damage before reporting. Like I said, you don't have to assess every detail of the person that have breached before reporting. You can actually report or notify the PDPO, and then over time you assess the person that have breached in detail. And don't assume a small mistake is not a breach. Yes, even if it means reporting a person that have breached whereby one data subject is involved, please do. Please do. This is important because by definition or by context, someone might think that a person data breach has to involve so many data subjects, like 1,000, 2,000. No, even if it's just one data subject or one victim involved in this breach, you have to report it to the office. I also prepared a checklist. The first one, these are the questions that you are going to ask yourself or take back to your media house. Is your media house registered with the office? Because it's a requirement. As data collectors or controllers, you're supposed to register with the office. Are you registered with the office? Another question you should ask yourself, what you should ask the media houses, do you have a written data protection or data handling policy? Do you have policies like information security policy? Do you have the incident response plan in place on paper? Do you have committees that talk about data protection and privacy issues within the media house? By the are these discussions on data protection, discussions on personal data breaches presented to the management or to the board? These are the questions we should ask ourselves. Then, do you have a data protection officer as an institution? Do staff, even it means the person at the bottom of the pyramid within your institution, know how to alert what to do the moment a breach is suspected? And this speaks directly to the incident response plan in place and whether you actually do drills and periodically review it. The other question is, are the devices, key accounts protected with strong password and MFA? These are the basics, but you can actually do more than this. You can actually implement more robust cybersecurity controls. Do you have a request consent for individuals when you're collecting data in the field? Yes. Do you request for consent from individuals before collecting data in the field? This is very important, and since I'm speaking on the platform that is organized by Consent Uganda, I believe this is something they talk about a lot. So I believe it's music to your ears. Consent is very important, and if possible, you can come up with a standardized form where the data subject sign to clearly show that they've given consent whenever you are collecting information in the field. So at this point, I would like to thank you so much for paying attention. I know I've rushed a lot through the sources. I know I've at some point repeated the same controls that you should implement. and I did that because I felt like they are very important. And yeah, so at this point, I'll open the floor for discussion, questions, feedback, and back to you, our moderator.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Kalema, for sharing with us extensively for almost 1 hour. Very interesting concepts. And thank you, colleagues, for paying attention. I saw the 100 of us very, very attentive. The chat has a lot of insightful aspects. I've seen our colleague Barbara sharing her experience of surviving the scammers. But I've also, for purposes of the questions in the chat, I have put them together. Kindly unshare so that I share the screen and you see them, so that we can provide responses faster. I know that also the time is not our best ally. Let us now look at the questions right here. Of course, as you're speaking, I kept on getting some information on some of the things, just to show colleagues what you've been talking about once again, how our data documents have been used in packaging mandazi, someone's transcript, people's papers being used for medicine packing, etc., popcorns being packed in our data sets, etc. And I've found this on online. I've just tried to surf and I found one of the websites having members of parliament contacts. So you can see that there's a lot of data breach. I don't know. I mean, I've just seen it on some website. I checked with parliament. I checked with some other websites. So you can see someone's name and their constituency and their district and their party and their contact. I don't know whether there are regulations for these kind of websites. I am also not sure whether these people are notified if their data is put there. I don't know. I just had a quick check when you are going through these things, just to randomly see. But these are the questions that are in the chat, just to make sure that we cover them. One of the colleagues was asking, I have always seen some media houses, mostly local ones, using information downloaded from national media houses platforms. Isn't that data breach? Maybe that is one of the questions that probably you could give us an answer. Then the other person was asking, how can we obtain the victim's consent when we get these reports from police? In most cases, we only publish the victims' names, ages, and places of residence. If a story is sensitive, we do not publish their names, we only mention their places of residence. I think the question here to answer is, how can we obtain the victim's consent when we get these reports from police? The other question was whether police officers in districts or wherever they are actually trained on data protection. Someone was wondering if the police personnel are actually trained on data protection and privacy. If not, I think it gives another option and maybe an intervention to Personal Data Protection Office to target police officials. The other question was that how do hackers steal our money from our mobile money accounts without our notice? Is MTN not having those IT specialists for protecting our accounts? Of course, others, I was picking them from YouTube. There are some colleagues on the YouTube. I also picked some of their comments there. Someone was saying that how do we then receive messages randomly from politicians, from the random messages we receive on our phones? How did these people get access to our contact lists? So those are some of the questions. Let me just run a little bit to another. There was another question on, there are people who do bids. The companies advertise for bids, and people submit their, of course, bid documents with employment history, with their details in there. How are organizations protecting this kind of data of the companies? So those are some of the questions that came through. I wish that, Christopher, you respond quickly to them. I see that our time is fast spent. Just give us responses and then we can move to the next. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you please share the screen again? The questions?
Oh, sorry. Let me share again. Just a second. Here. Let me put them in slide mode, maybe. Are you able to see them?
Yes, I can see them. You can see.
Okay.
Okay, so the first question is, I have already seen some media houses, most of the local ones, using information downloaded from national media houses platforms. Then that data breaching too. I believe by the time the media house publishes this information, in most cases it's public information. So them using the same information on their web. I'm trying to understand exactly what the question is. Mm,
All right, maybe you can be going to the next question as I organize. I think Doreen, she can give us a little bit of more light on the question, but I think that the information could be having the details, personal data of some people, and then the local stations down there in Karamoja, whatever, they use the same. They download this information and use it for news. So with personal data still. So I think that is where the question comes from.
Okay, it's time to be guided, but I don't think that stands as a data breach, a personal data breach.
Okay.
Because the moment you consent that your information is going to be used on a public platform that is accessed by so many people, you're already consenting to.
All right.
And someone asked, how can we obtain the victim's consent when we get these reports from the police? In most cases, when we publish the victims' names, ages, and places of residence, the story is sensitive. We don't publish their names, we only mention their place of residence. Yes, I believe the moment you get consent from the police, who, in most cases, uh, they are required to maybe publish this information to trim down maybe on the number of criminal offences in a particular district or maybe in the country. So I believe by the time they share this information, it has to be resolved. So this is not a data breach story. Officers trained on this. Yes, the office has a plan to actually train um, more officers in the country. The same way you say that we are currently handling media practitioners, I think that there is a plan in the pipeline to also sensitize and train them on handling personal data breaches. How do hackers steal our money from our mobile money accounts without our notice? Is MTN not having those IT specialists for protecting our accounts? Yes, they have IT specialists, but you can never find a system that is 100% secure. So in most cases, there are vulnerabilities. As you know, the technology world is ever evolving, and attackers are able to identify these vulnerabilities, get access to these platforms, to systems, and then find a way to steal money from mobile money accounts. The good news is that MTN and other companies that are in the top tier are doing whatever is possible to make sure that as these incidents happen, they improve and prevent your occurrences. So someone asked me, how do you receive messages from petitions? How do you get access to these, to our information? I think the question was in that line. I don't know whether I noted it properly, but I think it also goes to how we give out our information in the public. You go to an event as a journalist, you register everywhere because maybe you believe at some point they'll give you some allowance at the end. You didn't check whether this entity has enough privacy controls in place to prevent personal data breaches from happening. So it goes back to us as citizens, as humans. We are sometimes very easy to be seduced to give out our personal information. So when this information lands in an entrepreneur, they can go to probably any politician, especially during the political season, and then they pitch their proposals to reach out to these people who will be thinking about this information. So it goes back to us, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the office is not aware of these things. We are doing whatever is possible to make sure that uh, the right data privacy is respected by everyone. But whenever you encounter such scenarios, kindly reach out to us to raise a complaint, and then we'll do more investigations. So another person asked about bidding. To my understanding, bidding is part of the procurement process. And by the time you submit this kind of information, you have a motive in your head that maybe you want to secure this contract. The only negative part or the only cautious area is when the entity where you submitted your information published get this personal information that you publish and then they post it on the internet for everyone to see without your consent. I think those are the questions. Did I miss out any question?
Thank you, Mr. Kalema. Just hold on a little bit and I get you more here. In the chat, it's really very interesting that the colleagues are giving us testimonies of how they don't have some of these things at their offices. But someone is asking, what does it take for a media house to have data protection certificate? So what does it take them to have a data protection certificate? That is one of the questions. And then someone else is saying, how do hackers know that someone has money on his or her phone, rather her mobile money account, and then they call you with the intentions of getting that money? Okay, let me see. Okay, let me just quickly run through the chat. Others are really supplements, others are complements, others are experiences. So, okay, this is nice. Thank you, colleagues. They are appreciating you, Mr. Kalema, for the good presentation. How can one automatically protect their devices against hackers? Genex asks that. How can one automatically protect their device against hackers? That is that question. Okay. Let me see if there's any other. Someone is asking, please. Okay, this is I think for us. Okay, I think now let us respond to those, then we call it a day. I know that our time is most fast spent. Colleagues, other questions, I'll drop them to the presenter a little later. So, Kalema, kindly respond to those, and then we can move on. I see one more last question. My question is that how safe are these online financial loans? Because they ask for personal information and access your messages. So let us respond to only those so that we end the meeting, colleagues. I know that we have stretched 12 minutes. Kalema, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. Respond to those questions. The person who asked about how do hackers know the amount of money that you have on your any accounts. This is my personal opinion, but I believe it is possible that there can be some insider dealings within those institutions that can reveal that this entity has this amount of money on the account. But also, if you look at how we actually handle the way we handle our transactions, especially dealing with different agents. Sometimes the agents record down the numbers of the transactions that have happened, and in doing so, sometimes they put the amount of money that has been transacted. So when these registration books land into the wrong hands, they can actually do some mathematics and identify that this person actually might be having this amount of money for this guy who resides money in their account. Then the other question was about the registration process. Someone asked, what does it take for you to get a certificate? I don't know whether it's possible if my colleague on the call to share maybe the link, or maybe the phone numbers that you can call for you to be supported further, but it doesn't take much. As long as you are willing to get the certificate, you can reach out to us, then we can share with you the procedures, and I usually give the certificate in less than a week. Someone asked, how do I automatically protect the devices against hackers? You cannot automatically protect yourself. You have to put in some work. Yeah. So implementing these controls will require you to actually do some. There is no, to my understanding, there is no device that is on the market. It's only the phone that is on the market that is 100% automatically secured. They might give you the options for you to implement or to put in place, but it's up to you to actually implement them. Then someone asked, how safe are the digital learning applications? Most of them are not safe, especially when it comes to handling personal information. And blindly, some of us, because of the need for the money, we sometimes um, don't read the policies that are provided by these digital lending applications clearly. And as the office, we are doing some work around this. And if we are reviewing the most recent news or the news in the past few months about data protection and privacy, you can see that we've been doing some good work in terms of handling these digital lending applications. So I think that's it. If you have any questions, please kind of reach out to our office, be able to respond and support you. Back to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kalema Christopher. Kindly, colleagues, let us offer him the bugalo. Let us give him the flowers. Let us appreciate him for the good work, the nice presentation that he has offered to us. Let us give him a round of applause. Wow, thank you, comrades. Thank you. I can see in the chat. So, Mr. Kalema, as you rest, you can just go to the chat and look at what the colleagues have been putting. There are a lot of interesting stuff. Now, colleagues, thank you for being patient. We are now coming to the end of our series, the 3 sessions on data protection. We are going to keep waiting for the stories that come through, you're sharing with the people out there, and we shall be able to have also to run a media storm on data protection. Now, allow me to welcome Mr. Chimera to give us, to introduce to us our our official from DPPO, who's going to give us the closing remarks. Meanwhile, as they give the closing remarks, I'll be sharing with you the registration link in the chat in just a few minutes. And then as the colleagues are giving closing remarks, we can be registering such that we end the call in the next maybe 6 minutes. Thank you, colleagues. And Henry, over to you. Thank you for being a very good audience.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kalema. Thank you very much, Bernard. That has been quite a rich and telling presentation that we have had. Anita, I don't know if you can share with us who is with us from PDPO, who's going to give us the closing remarks. Anita, do we have anybody from PDPO? I'm trying to scan and see if the ED is on board or if he's not, who is representing him. Anita?
Thank you, Henry, and the team. We were supposed to have Edna, but I don't think she's able to make it. She was supposed to represent the director.
Okay.
But nevertheless, I could say a few things.
Please do.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining today's call. Of course, today is the day when we close our sessions, the Media League series on data protection. I would like to sincerely thank the facilitator for today and our moderator for guiding today's discussion. I also extend our appreciation to the journalists and the media who have participated throughout this series. Your engagement, of course, the thoughtful questions, the willingness to learn, show a growing commitment to responsible journalism and the protection of personal data. Over the course of this series, we've had a number of webinars, like our moderator had earlier mentioned, and the conversations are very important because personal data is central to the work of media professionals. So as communicators, you're interested with the information that belongs to real people, your sources, the people you interact with during your work. And while we get this information, it needs to be protected. The PDPO remains committed to working with you and other stakeholders in the media, of course, to promote awareness and strengthen compliance in Uganda. Finally, I would like to thank our partner, Consent Uganda, for the collaboration that made this series possible. Thank you so much all for your participation, and we look forward to engaging with you again in any future initiatives. Have a great weekend.
Very much, Anita. Those are quite rich sharing and words. They are really delivering a strong message. Partnerships do deliver, and partnerships build capacities of different stakeholders to improve quality of life. So thank you very much, very, very much, our partners, PDPO, all the team at PDPO family. We thank you very much. The Media League family, we thank you very, very much for always coming in. Today we have been more than 110 with others online, picking up with the YouTube link. This is great. And I would like to conclude by saying, please generate, create content on personal data protection, and also sensitize others. When you are at functions, it's coming to a weekend, or the weekend is here. I know many of you are going to be MCs. Many of you are going to be on radio programs. Many of you are going to be in community social clubs and religious clubs. Please share the data, bleach information, and let's build a strong digital economy that is respected. As media, we have got rights and responsibilities. Let us do responsible and sustainable consumption and production in whatever we are doing. So I would like to thank you on behalf of Consent and on my own behalf for being with you. We're still going to be with you. We have many more webinars coming on board where we will be sharing with you. Like we said earlier, we have got the consumer justice and protection webinars. Still, we will be bringing in, how do we bring consumer justice and protection with regards to personal data? We will be having our colleagues from PDPO coming on board sometime in August or September. Still, that will be a good retooling for you colleagues to get to know, and you will have utilized the knowledge that has been shared. So in that webinar, either in late August or early September, we will be sharing some more insights. So with that said, colleagues, the registration link has been put in the chat. May you please register and get the information with regards to your, so that your information, like we always tell you, we protect it and we don't get it abused. We are audited by the PDPO as we get our license. So don't be rest assured that the data you share with us is well protected and well utilized. It isn't shared irresponsibly, and it isn't utilized irresponsibly. So with that, with those many words, Bernard said it was April 24th. I remember we were either in Mbale or Palisa when we did launch this series, and today, July 24th, we are winding up the series. And one of these days after you have all concluded, and we have the best of the best with regards content generation, reporting, we'll be designing the certificates and we'll be inviting you to hand them over to receive. We'll be arranging that day with PDPO and also getting the executive director to hand over the awards. We'll be visiting the PDPO offices. So we hope in these coming weeks, you are going to use all your platforms to share, to generate, and sensitize the communities, the consumers on data protection. Please do share all that information with ASHA so that ASHA puts it in our database, and a team will be selecting the best of the best so that we are in position to award you. And we'll have the honors, the chief executive of the data protection office will be awarding the best writers, the best creators, the best innovators out of this series. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a superb weekend. I will pray that you will utilize the next 3 minutes to finish up and the registration, and I'll be closing the link or the Zoom at 4:30. Colleagues, those who are asking for the presentation, you very well know, and we are going to use the protocols that we use. Your respective coordinators will be in position to pass on the information. And I would like to use also this opportunity to send our condolences to Doreen, the coordinator of the Toro region, for having on the passing of her brother. All our condolences, and we pray with the family that all goes on well, and let's celebrate the life of our brother. So, ladies and gentlemen, with those words, I wish you all the best and superb weekend. Thank you. Bernard, in case there are any other administrative, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Henry, for giving us the honors. And colleagues, the moment you're done with registration, please feel free to leave. We are also optimistic that each one of you has received their resources for the previous meetings up to the last one of today. So we hope that there's nobody who has not received their previous resources. Kindly, if you've not, reach out to Asha. But as far as our officers are concerned, majority of us have received all our pending resources. So please grab the link, sign in so that we end the call. As soon as you finish registering, please feel free to leave. In case you have challenges, let me know. But in the next 3-4 minutes, we should be done. The presentation has been shared in the chat. And of course, Asha will reach out to you in your groups with the presentation still, just in case some colleagues have left before they could pick the presentation. You will still receive it, and we are still receiving your articles. We shall keep receiving your messages. We shall keep receiving your creative content regarding to this. There are some of you who have not yet received their previous certificates. Some of the certificates were not yet signed off by one of the actors. Please just be patient with us. You will be able to receive them. Some of you are still asking about the accolades of the previous sessions. They are also underway. They're just being polished up. So please take heart. Just keep in there. You'll be able to receive your awards. And then also the certificates for these 3 sessions will be coming your way. You just need to give us a little bit more time to have the signatories append their signatures in there. But best we think about is the knowledge that we are acquiring. I am happy that all of you are receiving this information timely. You are able to use it. You are able to utilize it. So let us keep using this information. And whenever you want to reach DPPO, please let us know so that we can link you to whoever you can speak with. For you to be able to get maybe a comment or something, we can always link you to the team at the Personal Data Protection Office. Reach out to us anytime you wish. We can always respond to your queries. We can always respond to your stories. We can always give you commentary. So please feel free to reach out. So lastly, let me just check if there's anyone who has challenges with registering so that in the next 1 minute, we should be able to close. Thank you, colleagues, and we wish you the best of luck. And let me just see 1 more minute if there is anybody who has not registered. I see, who's this? Ngabirano, you just have maybe 1 more minute. I have reshared the link there. Just 1 minute, you should be done. The link is just asking you for just a few details. Okay. So colleagues, Henry will be cutting off the meeting in 1 minute. Thank you so much and have a lovely weekend.